really start to take a look at the integration of these two different entities and how they actually interlink together. So in other words, if you want to build humus in the soil, the fastest way to do that is to develop plants that have high levels of complex organic metabolites. You'll be able to build long-term stable humus in the soil to the degree which you are capable of reaching upper levels of plant health without, going out and purchasing humic acid or humic shale or leonardite or some other form of humic. This has been proven over and over that you can actually reduce the amount of carbon that's needed by pulling carbon from the air, pushing it back out into the root systems through photosynthesis and back out into the root zone in the form of simple sugars. When those simple sugars begin to have more and more carbon and the photosynthesis accelerates, you have a cascading organic molecule reactions that build both in the plant and in the soil health that's resilient against insects, disease, crop input problems, crop problems, plant stress, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the fundamental piece. You need carbon and you need a good amount of it in order for both the plant and the soil in order for them to function. But the plant is capable of eating the carbon to the soil once your soil food web has been jump-started. So here is where the rubber really meets the road, right? And so if you look at the middle column in red and you look at the bottom half, bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, soil insects, and worms, 8, 5, 8, 6, approximately 8 to 10 and 8 to 10% of nitrogen in those inputs. They're storing carbon in their cell walls, in their organs, and so on and so forth, but they're also storing nitrogen. And as the soil food web cycles, it releases carbon and nitrogen back to the plant. This process is extremely key because what this is showing you is that you're actually investing in your own NPK with hardcore dollar values that could theoretically be calculated if you use this process. This is something that's really glossed over a lot from my understanding and my experience in discussions on soil food web, soil biology, and soil health building. I've seen a lot of soil health webinars that fail to make the connection between hardcore dollars and cents and input needs that the farmers have. So this is one of the ways that we've seen growers be able to take their units of nitrogen that they would utilize in a given season and drop it by 10%, 15%, 20%, 30%, and in some cases a lot more. As you build soil microbes, those microbes have nitrogen in them. That nitrogen becomes made available to those plants, and that is free money for you. You can do this by applying small amounts of carbon to the plant and jump-starting these photosynthetic reactions if done precisely. So there's a common discussion within soil food web communities about ecological succession of species. And there's one common thread. As you go from left to right on your ecological succession of species, there's a lot more carbon that's not only sequestered, but is also stored within the root zones and rhizospheres of those communities. So as you build microbial life and as you nourish that microbial life, that nature is then nourishing your own crops, taking some of the pressure off of what you have to do, what you have to purchase on a day-to-day basis. This is at the heart of the new paradigm of crop nutrition. And this is what we've learned over the last 10 years, how to replicate over and over in multiple different cropping systems. So nature's approach, you grow a small amount of vegetation, you get a life form to feed on it, you fill that life form to the point of excretion, you find other life forms to decompose these excretions, and you use those excretions to create even more life and nourish more life. And you repeat that process using successive forms of life. So that's a very layman's term definition of the soil food web. But now we're making it the plant soil food web, or as I recall, plant soil matrix, which I believe is a much more comprehensive approach than only looking at soil food web and soil biology. You can't look at soil food web and soil biology without including plant and the plant health. Plants aren't healthy, the soil food web won't be healthy, and vice versa. So if we focus on feeding the plant minerals what it needs and not what it doesn't, feed the biology what it needs and not what it doesn't, and continually monitor the crop as needed and budgeted, those should give us enough parameters in order to put carbon back in the soil and correctly assess carbon needs of both the plant and the soil. I talk a lot about POC. There's some indicators on the leaf analysis as well that show you where carbon is needed, and we'll talk more about that later in the webinar series. It's been proven across many different scientific journals that mycorrhizal fungi helps plants to essentially access 10 times greater nutrients. This is because they have a much greater surface area and are able to penetrate into soil pores that the roots cannot. It also can hold moisture and allow it to be buffered and accessed. As this process expands and accelerates, it's incredible what this can do for your crop. When you have microbes on the plant, you'll have competition between healthy microbes and potentially pathogenic microbes. And this shows you that the disease might be present, but it might not be expressed, right? And this is very common, right? So, we all know this to be true. If you go to a gathering and you get sick, but your loved ones don't get sick, they may have the same germs, but they're not expressing them in their own personal life. So complex organic molecules can feed phylosphere microbes. In other words, the microbes that live on the plant's leaf surface. If those molecules are feeding phylosphere microbes, that plant will then also develop a symbiotic relationship, and this can encourage or discourage plant to produce its own defense compounds. So this is another opportunity. So this is more like air-plant symbiosis, right? Instead of soil-plant symbiosis. If you have effective competition, it's been shown over and over that this can create disease-suppressive phylosphere. And by phylosphere, for those of you that don't know what that means, the plant leaf surface. When you have negative microbes on the plant, you can also have untold crop losses. We don't need to go too deep into this because everybody talks about disease and they've all got some cure for it. And it typically costs, $89.95 and it looks like snake oil in a jug. But a lot of these are replicating through food sources within the plant, sugars, free amino acids, stressed plants. There's hundreds of studies on mycorrhizal fungi, inoculants, and disease suppressive soil that take out the need for, harmful fungicides and bactericides in both the root zone as well as the leaf phylosphere.